What do you think of when you think of the word monster? Large, hulking creatures, lacking in intelligence, ravenous for human beings, just this incessant need to attack and destroy and tear apart people. They're this unstoppable force that threatens humanity. You need some special hero, someone with special skills or special equipment or just divinely blessed by God himself to go out and tackle these threats and save humanity from these wretched, wretched creatures. And when you use that sort of vibe to define a monster, sure, you got the creature from the Black Lagoon. He's just out attacking people. And in most iterations, you don't even see him eat the people. He kind of just beats the crap out of them or drags them underwater and drowns them. It's just random acts of violence. The Mummy, he lashes out at anyone who would enter his tomb and rips them to shreds. A werewolf, under the full moon, he transforms into a horrible beast and he devours innocent people. But then you got, like, Dracula and Frankenstein, and, like, honestly, these guys aren't even really monsters. Like, at least Frankenstein looks like a monster, but in the original story, he wasn't even monstrous. He was just very, very strong and very, very confused and treated like a monster. He was monstrous in appearance, but he wasn't really necessarily even a monster.
Right. And this is wine. To drink. Drink. Drink.
He wasn't a violent sociopath. And even when you look at Dracula, who is a violent sociopath, we don't really see him go feral. Like, aside from the, like, split second or two it takes for him to attack his victims and, like, sink his fangs in and kill them, 99.9% of the time, he's more human than Frankenstein, who I would even argue isn't even a monster. I feel like vampires aren't monsters.
Now that you have learned what you have learned, it would be well for you to return to your own country.
I prefer to remain and protect those whom you would destroy.
You are too late. My blood now flows through your veins.
They're not monstrous enough. They're not feral. They can exist amongst humanity and blend in with humans better than Frankenstein can. At least Frankenstein looks like a monster. Dracula is just a dude. He doesn't even have pointy ears like I do. I
just want to.
He's got no pointy ears, he's got no horns. What's a vampire's defining physical trait? Sharp teeth? Okay. Half the time only, sometimes only when they're feeding. What's their other defining trait? Pale? I mean, I agree that being Caucasian is a curse, but I wouldn't necessarily accuse it of being monstrous. I can't help but feel like vampires just aren't monsters. They're not monstrous, except for the 5 seconds it takes for them to attack somebody. They can walk amongst humankind relatively unhindered. And hell, half of the vampire stories not only have them walking amongst humans, but require them to. And half the time when we hear a vampire story, they don't even do like classic cursed monstery things like not being able to cross running water or having to ask permission before coming inside or any of the other aspects that make them cursed. Aside from a weakness to sunlight, which is like one of the only traits that is consistent across vampire lore. The weaknesses that they're depicted with in pop culture is kind of either non-existent, or half the time they're half vampire, half human, and then they get all the superpowers with none of the weaknesses. The Daywalker! Which, honestly, like, yeah, is it cool? Yeah, but think about Daywalkers, think about Dracula, think about any character ever named Alucard, right? They don't act like monsters. Like 99% of the time, when you see a vampire on screen, they're not doing their vampire thing, they're doing other shit.
And God shits in my dinner once again. Oh, no. I really am turning into Belmont. Is life even worth living now?
Maybe they're like Dracula in the Castlevania animation where he's like the leader of an army of vampires and they're having like political debates and power struggles.
There are only 2 humans in your inner court, and they are the ones who will plan our next attack. The only 2 generals in my court who are not driven by thirst.
Which is, you know, not monstrous at all. Like, they talk about humans like they're cattle, but, like, humans talk about people like they're cattle.
$8 on lot A.
Going once, twice, 3 times sold.
How does that happen? Not true. What
How
you just
does it
said,
happen?
that's gobbledygook. Okay, that can't be true, because what can this dude do? Look at him. What could he pick? A cotton plant is like this tall.
Yes.
I'm saying, no offense, brother. I'm just saying.
Offense taken.
Dracula in Castlevania the animation isn't inhuman. He's just a dude with magic who hates humanities, and he's got, you know, Team Vampire and Team Human. Like, that's not monstrous. That's not monstrous at all. And what does he do that is scary and monstrous? Requires him to use magic, which in the show, humans can use. So it's not unique to vampires. He's just very, very powerful at magic. Or like in Blade, being a vampire is literally just a superpower that he uses to kill other vampires. Hell, even in Blade, the vampires that you see aren't all that monstrous. Aside from the one scene where they're like at a rave partying and then there's like blood coming from the ceiling. They're not, you know, obsessed. They're not unintelligent. They're not feral. Admittedly, a perfectly fine story, but it's not a monster story. Like, you wouldn't lump in a vampire with a chupacabra. You wouldn't lump in a vampire with a Wendigo, would you? When you think of a monster, you just don't think of vampire, because they're not monsters. They're people with superpowers, and in only some iterations, super weaknesses. It's not that they're not good characters or can't be used effectively in storytelling, but I can't help but feel like they're metahumans. I could easily see a vampire in the Justice League, for example. What, they need blood to survive? They could purchase it. Like, Batman's got infinite money. He could just have people do the blood donation thing, feed the vampire so the vampire can use his kick-ass superpowers to help the Justice League save the day. Or maybe he doesn't even need that. Maybe they fight so many supervillains that the vampire just feeds on the supervillains. It's like, oh no, we've got an alien invasion. Dracula just swoops in, bites the necks of the aliens. Now he drinks alien blood. Hey, I bet now he has superpowers. Come on, you could totally see Dracula as part of the Justice League or as one of the X-Men. As a matter of fact, the more I think of it, Dracula was a comics character. Moon Knight has fought Dracula. He feels like a comic book character. He feels like a supervillain. And most vampires are just that. They're either supervillains or they're anti-heroes who are fighting other vampires, which is just so not a monster thing to do. So I vote that we stop calling vampires monsters and start calling them metahumans. That's my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Should we stop calling Dracula a monster because he's kind of, you know, not a monster? Let me know what you guys think. Bye, guys!